So, Jake, I mean, hearing this, what's your reaction?
Well, first off, just from the Harbaugh side, I say congratulations to him. I wish you the best. I've said wherever he coaches next year, I'll be a supporter of that team, whether it was at Michigan, Chargers, Falcons, whatever. He meant a lot to me as a coach. I think he immediately elevates the Chargers to a serious playoff and Super Bowl contender. That's what he does everywhere he's been. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to the Chargers. Now you have the Michigan side where I think what's going to be extremely frustrating for Michigan fans is just getting this taste of what you thought was possible, which is this year of winning a national title, which is the past 3 years of beating your rivals and winning Big Ten champs, and this vindication of, yes, finally, we got that monkey off our back. We are who we say we are. And now your head coach is gone, and it's like that road back to this, it's a lot harder. Once Lloyd Carr left, you saw the potential of moving on from an excellent head coach under Rich Rod and Brady Hoke. Some dark years mixed in there. I think Sharon Moore, I trust him. I believe he's going to be a phenomenal head coach. I think the program's in good hands. I'm excited to see. But the fact of the matter is Jim Harbaugh's gone. Now, when you talk about the contract, and you were making a great point there, JP, of what the paradox of the fact that was reported today is everything Jim Harbaugh had asked for was on the table.
Yes.
Specifically, the number one thing, which is immunity from the current NCAA investigations. He would not be fired from those current NCAA investigations. But then you have to say why. That's everything you asked for, Coach. It is a fair question to say, why was the deal not signed? That question starts to unlock some uncomfortable truths, I think, which is that this was more than just language. Timing matters here. If from Michigan's standpoint, my question is, if this is what you were going to offer, why did it take so long for this offer to be placed across from the table? Jim Harbaugh doesn't like to be toyed around with. You have to ask, why wasn't this immediately put on the table when the investigation came out? Why wasn't this put on the table a few years ago? That's a fair question. And then the relationship standpoint is there a relationship within the athletic department or the university as a whole that's preventing this from being signed? That's another question that has to be explored.
Yeah, I think Jim Harbaugh, we all know this, is a very particular man, and he likes to have things a very specific way. But that way works, and that way wins. And I think we've all come to realize that. But the idea that he did not feel like the relationships were where he needed them to be, I think was the biggest deterrent for this getting done. Jake, you said it. Everything he had asked for ultimately was presented on the table to him, said, we want you back here at your alma mater, the place where you played, the place where you were a Heisman finalist, the place where you just won a title. And he said, I got to go elsewhere. And that, to me, points to a relationship issue. Last thing that I'll say about the Michigan aspect of this before we move on to the NFL side of things is I watched a school go from a legendary national championship coach to an internal hire. And things have been good, but there is certainly a difference between an elite championship coach and a guy who has worked under his tutelage that is good, but is inexperienced. If they go with Sharon Moore, I think he's going to be phenomenal. He's one of the coaches that I respect as much as anybody in the business, but there'll probably be some growing pains along the way, and you got to be prepared for that because he doesn't have that experience.
It's not to say he can't do that. It's a risk. I just want to say one more thing, because when the whole sign stealing scandal came out, remember there was reports that there was someone within Michigan that was actively sabotaged. Remember, I can't remember the name of who it was, but there was someone within Michigan that actively wanted Jim Harbaugh gone. You guys remember those reports?
Sure.
Yeah.
He needed someone to stand by him through that. I do think that that's a big piece of this.
No, I mean, these are all things that we need to consider when it comes to Jim Harbaugh and his decision to head to the NFL. Another thing, you mentioned Sharon Moore potentially stepping in his role, but could he take Jesse Minter? Could he take some other guys with him to the NFL? These are all things that are going to unfold there. But let's look ahead. Let's look ahead to the Chargers. Now that he is the head coach, what can he do with them? Taking a look at what they have, what can he do with them at the next level?
Elevate them immediately. He can do with them what he's done with every team he's been a part of, everywhere he's been. What were the Niners before he got there? What were the Niners after he got there? What was Stanford before he got there? What's Stanford currently today? What was Michigan before he got there, right? This is what Jim Harbaugh does. He wins everywhere. How could you ever bet against that being a certain truth that he's going to. They have the quarterback figured out. It's a talented roster. I understand the cap issues, but head coaching is head coaching. It is so much different than X's and O's. It's so much different than calling plays. Jim Harbaugh knows how to be a damn good head coach, a winning head coach. The Chargers are immediately better with him as their head coach.
Why is that the answer, though, I think is what is really intriguing about Jim Harbaugh. He is so old school compared to the way that guys like to get the job done nowadays. I think guys are all about the flash and the talent and the high-end trinkets that get you there. Jim Harbaugh is about being gritty. He's about culture. He's about starting with, building a foundation up front and then working the way back. He's a great teacher. He's been known as a guy who can tutor and develop quarterbacks. You got one of the best bright stars at quarterback on your team there. I feel like he is a guy who can bring the Chargers something that they need. It's an organization that I played for. And of course, they've gone through multiple iterations since I left there. The biggest thing that I felt when I walked into that locker room as a rookie was there's something missing here in terms of the culture of this organization. It didn't feel like what I came from. And it doesn't have to be the same way everywhere. But when there is a distinct culture that works when you walk into a building, Jim Harbaugh will bring that to the Chargers, and I think that immediately helps improve them as well.
When you ask that question, it's a beautiful question, because asking that question why unlocks all the answers. And what's unique about Coach Harbaugh and what makes this work is not, you have to be very careful with if you're going to bring someone with an old school mentality in, you could lose trust in the locker room almost instantaneously. But if you take a program that's tired of losing, which we were at Michigan, which the Niners were, which Stanford was, Chargers are tired of falling short. We got the franchise quarterback. Why can't we get over the hump? Jim Harbaugh, immediately when his name is in that line of head coach, you believe you can get there, right? By unlocking that question, by asking that question, you start to unlock the answers. Even though he's a tough-nosed guy, he has a proven track record. So you're okay working hard. You're okay with a lunch pail mentality and being greedy because you're going to win games.
And he has a proven track record of doing and working well with quarterbacks. We saw what he was able to do with J.J. McCarthy. And I feel like you mentioned unlocking potential. And I feel like Justin Herbert, we haven't really seen him unlock his full potential here. So how can Harbaugh work with him? What can he do with his talent?
Institute a system. I think you coach a guy within the framework of a system that you have coached within for many years and is tried and true. You give him the tools that he needs, right? And so when I'm talking about tools, I'm meaning the weapons that he needs, the protection that he needs up front. I'm talking about schematic tools to make checks and understand where to go with the ball. And then you just unleash him. You put him there with a run game that you know is going to be an emphasis. And you let the guy have as many answers as he can get. We talked about J.J. McCarthy when it came to Michigan this year and the things that he didn't do, right? Didn't throw the ball enough in some of the big moments. He ran it 32 straight times against Penn State. You look at the national championship game, the guy won that game with 10 completions. I think a lot of people would make the argument that they always gave him the tools to be successful. If the run game was working, they were going to run the football. If J.J. needed to use his legs, they were going to use his legs. And when it was time for them to take a shot down the football field, and you remember the national title game to Roman coming on the deep over, they take the shots. They give the quarterback the best ability to get into a play that works. Make the game easy for the guy.
And when we talk about unlocking a quarterback's potential, what are we talking about? Winning games. That's all we're really talking about, okay? Like Herbert, we see his potential. The dude's talented as it comes. I mean, his potential is his potential. It's tier 1 potential. But quarterback potential means winning games, which means a head coach, every reason you just said, JP, which is unlock all the weapons around him. It also means bringing in a defensive coordinator, which may be Jesse Minter, which I believe he ran a complex college defense that's ready to succeed at the NFL level, just like Mike Macdonald did at Michigan before he coordinates the Ravens defense we were talking about on our show earlier in the week. That's what a head coach does.
That's one of the things that I'm looking forward to is if Jesse Minter leaves, I think he steps in right away and becomes a very successful NFL coordinator. And you mentioned what we've seen from Mike Macdonald and what we've seen from the Ravens and how they run things. It's a system that people are after right now. Everybody wants a piece of that. It was like
copycat league.
It was like the cover 3, kind of the hybrid defense that Seattle ran. When everybody started going to that cover 3 and they started running the hybrid 3-4-4-3 front because it was working. And I think people really want to get that. I think it's going to work. Then the question becomes at Michigan.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about one of the best defenses we had seen maybe in the last 20 years, and that guy's not going to be in the building anymore.
Year over year over year.
It's going to be tough to replace there.
And again, the cycle has came and went, right? Like we're transitioning into February at this point. So now you're talking Sharon Moore will be your head coach. The transfer portal is going to open for Michigan again.
What does that mean? With Alabama.
Rated.
Yeah.
And now you're potentially replacing a defensive coordinator too, one of the best in the business from Michigan. We don't know where Jesse Minter's going to go, but it's something to watch.
The other thing we haven't talked about with Michigan, I know we're going on and on here, but there's a portal window that's opening up as well. And I know that they're a big culture team, and I know that if you hire from within, you get some continuity, but I will be curious to see if anybody takes a hard look at that.
They're at a point where they need to be adding because they're losing so much.
You're looking for a quarterback. You need a quarterback, and they lost a lot of big pieces there for that team, and so there's definitely some changes going on in Ann Arbor. What do you think Ryan Day's thinking at this moment?
Well, he's thinking two things. He's taking a deep breath, a sigh of relief, but he's also thinking, brother, I got to get the job done. If they come to Columbus, Ohio this year with a new head coach, different program, and they get a win after Ohio State with the portal, they spend some NIL money, they retooled their staff, my man won't make it out of Ohio Stadium, and that would be really unfortunate for him.
There was a five-star Jeremiah Smith, like #1 player in the country. When he committed, Ryan Day got weakened. And that's what happened when he saw that tweet from. That's the same thing that happened.
On his Twitter, he's like, wait, is that for real?
Because Jim just applies the pressure. It's just pressure. Sharon, if it is Sharon, will apply the same pressure, but it's still Jim Harbaugh.
It's a different pressure.
Two completely different feelings in Ann Arbor.